Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining this session on Agentic AI. And today's discussion is more focused on more of how the code base, a little more advanced agents. We have done a few sessions on basic agents, getting started with agents and general concepts, but this is a step forward. Quick introductions. Myself, Raju Srivastava. I'm the founder of bigdatatrunk and Certified 360. AI startup company, and bigdatatrunk is a corporate training services company for decade plus. Blessed to be part of the tech and that revolution. Me and my team continues to share our 2 cents to this kind of sessions, to conferences, all wherever we get a chance. I'm also had the blessing and opportunity to be an author of 2 books. Both are in Amazon available. One for Pearson publication, one for Microsoft Press. And along with me is Aparna, who is one of our lead instructors on AI and data science, author of 3 books on analytics, and has a great balance between the academic teaching Fortune 500 companies on similar topics, AI and data science, machine learning, but also has a balance of working on products on our own startups, as well as advisoring, which we both do and several other members do. In terms of logistics, this attendees are muted at the beginning. Q&A will be in the end. Feel free to put where you are joining into the chat right now, and any questions you have at any point of time so that you don't forget it. We will try to triage. Our team is there to look at the questions and at some logical point, or in the end, we'll share that. We'll be sharing the recording. It will be available on our YouTube channel. We'll share the link. You can also go into bigdatatrunk.com and you can find that YouTube channel there if you wanted to, or we'll be sharing through a whatever mechanism you have logged in on Maven as well. For folks who stay to the end, there will be a gift. So people, for the patience and staying till the end, we would like to compensate or help them with a small gift. Our hope is to do some kind of hands-on, at least get you situated and started. So if you are just on a phone or a iPad or something like that, and would like to really get into a little bit of hands-on, at least get you enabled, we would want you to do that. We strongly encourage. I think that's a big value when you end of the session have got some yourself situated or got started. So that's what our hope is. And if you desire, be ready, or we'll not be able to do everything step by step. Troubleshooting and all those things might be quite challenging within the short period of time, but this is anticipated to do some kind of hands-on and help you all do it. We'll definitely be doing 2 demos, and that's the bulk part of the conversation anyways. So that's the starting logistics and points. Let's get started. What we're hoping to do today is take the conversation about AI agents forward into a next level. We had some sessions, it's already recorded and provided as the getting started agents. We're going to take that conversation forward and go into more smarter, deeper code-based agents. But at the same time, we know there are a lot of folks who come in with non-tech backgrounds. So we want to touch that aspect as well. There'll be 2 demos, one with almost no code. The another one will be deep into the code side of it. So there is both the spectrums. And then we do want to spend some time understanding the AI world, the industry, the trends, what is changing, and a lot is changing, evolving. And we just want to share our 2 cents when we are talking to corporate CIOs and how we are interacting and what we are seeing. We just want to share 2 cents, and how the biggest question which I keep getting is, how do we keep up with this fast-paced changing world of learning? So we have a sort of framework which we would like to share, and hopefully that can help a lot of folks. So that's a quick thought process agenda which we want to do. We'll be team tagging. I think Aparna will be teaching some parts of it, doing what demo, and myself, and we'll go back and forth. So with that, I'm going to hand over to Aparna. Aparna, do you want to share the screen, or shall I continue the slides?
You can continue for this part. I'll take over with the demo. Thanks, Raj. Hello, everybody. Good evening or good afternoon, depending where you're joining from. Welcome to the session. We're going to do very brief, the concepts part of it, probably keep it under a few minutes. So we get to spend a little more time on the actual demos themselves. So when it comes to the whole code-based approach, like Raj has already mentioned, we'll be looking at 2 different ways of handling it. One would be the low-code, no-code approach, a more visual approach where it's easier to kind of get started. We'll also try to replicate the same thing through a more developer-focused approach with some Python-based code as well. So we're going to start off with an LLM core. Now, any agent, the intelligence actually comes in from the LLM part of it. So this is one space where you are definitely going to need access to, API level access to some kind of an LLM of your choice. Could be anything across the board, OpenAI, Claude, Gemini. So some sort of API key is going to be needed. That is actually going to be doing the actual background, the intelligent part of the work in terms of going, deciding which tool to call, being able to do all the scraping, get the data and stuff like that. Moving on, once, after the LLM core, what comes in next is the whole set of tools that you're also providing access to. This is a place where you can get very, very creative. There are certain custom tools, core tools that are already available with a lot of the frameworks that we're going to be using. But especially if you're interested in creating really powerful custom agents, this is one place where you need to put an effort in terms of the kinds of tools that you're going to create and give your agent access to. But it's the agent that's going to decide which tool to call at what point of time and what to do with that output as such. Moving on. So both of these are places where, again, one, having API level access. Two, I would say, first start with your use case in mind. Exactly what is it that you want your agent to carry out? That gives you a good idea of what all tools will be necessary and in which order, and then we're going to write code accordingly. The third aspect is the memory part of it. We won't have too much scope for, long-term memory in terms of the demos for today, but a lot of times we do want some persistence. We want your agents to remember the state either within the span of that single conversation that is happening, or on a much larger scale, having access to a lot more internal proprietary data, being able to remember previous runs of the agent to kind of refine itself. So these are aspects where the memory part kind of comes into play. Moving on, a couple more things that do become necessary is one, the actual creation of the agent itself, for which we are going to be using, some framework like LangChain, for example, which is where you actually create your agent. The agent then goes ahead, selects the tool. One very important aspect again becomes the whole error handling part of it, especially if supposing one of the tools doesn't give back the right kind of response that we were expecting. How would you gracefully handle those kind of situations? So again, some part of it needs to go into the code. Some part of it can become, part of the kind of prompts that you put into your system itself. And finally, again, this is one place where we might need to do quite a lot of work in terms of the whole UI part of it. Are you going to be sending your agent responses downstream? Is it coming back to the user and then they're going to further prompt the agent? So again, that depends on the use case. Moving on, we will try to replicate, next slide, please. A majority of this work through the demo that we'll have once, we're done with the first demo by Raj. So we're going to be using LangChain for that purpose. And again, keeping it brief for now, the very term itself, LangChain, there is a lot of chains that you can create, multiple calls between the LLM model itself and various different tools, depending on whatever reasoning the LLM is going through. The demo that we're going to be doing today will make use of the reasoning and followed by the act pattern, the react pattern. Again, there are multiple types you can go with. It could be 0 shot, 1 shot. Then the tools themselves, which are basically, Python functions that we are going to write, which the LangChain is going to pick up and know which tool to call depending on, how we are proceeding with our agent building. We've already mentioned, there's this both short versus long-term memory that we can build in depending on what we want our agent to do. So we'll get to see a lot of this in the actual demo part of it. Moving on, the other approach to the whole agent building, which is through LangFlow, the other demo that we've planned for you today. It's more of a no-code interface, very visual, very GUI-based, drag and drop. You have all these, nodes or icons to keep it simple, that you can bring in kind of established connections between one another and then mimic whatever agentic flow that you are interested in. This makes it a lot more easier for people kind of getting started. Plus, they are very powerful. You have all of those options already available. Again, depending on your use case, having your idea in mind as to what needs to be brought in, how you would go about establishing the connections is where you'll be spending some time and effort. Very easy, like very quick prototyping. This is probably a good way to get started if this is your very first time building agents. And once this is done, then it makes sense to move to the whole code-based approach, where you get to do a lot more powerful custom variants as such. So especially for prototyping, being able to understand what data comes in from which tool, where there is probably some problem. For example, maybe, one of your nodes, you're expecting some JSON format, but then the data is probably coming in through in a string format. So this kind of debugging becomes a lot more easier when it is, this whole visual workflows that we are trying to create. And the good thing is there are hundreds, sometimes even thousands of pre-built integrations, either to multiple LLM models, a lot of these pre-built tools that are already ready. So it's just a matter of, kind of drag and drop and establish your connections. Maybe, put in a little bit of logic, some sort of switch if else nodes to determine what the agent should actually be doing. So this is one other approach that also we're going to actually, explore right now once we get to the demos part of it. The next slide, please. Raj will take over now for the very first demo, which will be the whole low-code approach, and then we'll move on to one of the code-based approaches. Thank you.
Thanks, Aparna. Thanks for the quick overview of what the different components within the agent are typically there. As I said, I think there are two demos which we are trying to address. The first one, we are going to try to do a no-code, almost no-code. And this is more of a walkthrough and get you started during using a setup and an online tool. And then Aparna would be doing a much more code-based, much more deeper example. But what we like to really do is like balance it out. And there are a lot of folks which will be doing it, maybe not ready for code right now, or we at least get started. So what I'm going to do is, and some of you may have joined our previous session where we did something similar, a part of it which we would have done. We are going to do a bit different approach. But here is if you want to take a screenshot of this, what I'm going to suggest is I have the account, but this is the steps to get yourself created on LangFlow. LangFlow is, as Aparna pointed out, it's a GUI-based user interface drag and drop application by a company called DataStack. DataStack has been acquired by IBM a few years back. They have the vector database Astra and a few other things they do, but they also have this very nice LangFlow online-based, all cloud-hosted application, which helps you get started very quickly. So these are very few steps which you need to do. What I'm going to do is I'm going to try and mimic some of the steps. It's a little challenging because what happens is like the same things I have already done. So sometimes those steps do not follow. But I would really see if I will open up a timer for a little bit once I have done a little bit, and I'll show where to go and whatnot. And I think if you can do in 2 minutes, I really like people to get something out, tangible, that I have an account, I have a setup, and now I can do, when we give all these darts and different things to you all, you can do at your own time and pace, more things, but at least get started with something. So if you are somewhere away and want to come back to your computer and just quickly get onto this would be the time to do that. So let me actually switch out from the, so here is my instance, which is already created and logged in. But to be able to do that, what I was referring, and I'm going to just mimic, but may not be able to do the whole setup and may not need to. I'm just going to go incognito window and see if I can just bring this up. So this is where the link, langflow.datastack or accounts.datastack.com will take you. You can log in various ways. The easiest which for most of the folks is usually Google. So once you do that, it's going to ask you a few steps which you need to follow. And once you have done those steps and just typical sign up and approval and term conditions and so on and so forth, you should be able to get that access. So I'm just going to give people 2 minutes to be able to do that and pause here. If you have already done that, you've said that, use that as a bio break, whatever you need to. But we're going to just take a moment here for folks to be able to do and set up where wants to just 2 minutes, and then we'll continue with the actual demo for this part. Okay, so 2 minutes. For folks who wanted to get started, I strongly recommend people to at least get the starting point. It is really helpful, and then I'll walk you through what to do and what not steps, which we may not follow. We will not be able to do all the steps in together, but at least get yourself situated and set up completed. So I'll be back. We can share the URL. And folks are asking for the recording. It's going to be on YouTube. It's not processed yet, so obviously it will not be there. But later point of time we'll put there. The screen share is limiting me to really open it up. Oh, can you share the URL? Yeah, okay, let me do this. Let me stop this and just give you all the link. What do you mean? Is it giving a particular error, or what do you mean? Let me stop the share. I'm going to give the written text and in the chat, and then again go back to screen share. Or you can try account.datastax.com. Okay, that's strange. I hope they don't have any server issues or something. It's an online platform, so sometimes Murphy's Law can kick in, and you never know. Let me try to get in, and actually, I've given the instructions again. Sometimes it is not feasible for everybody to be able to do it together, but that's the instruction, and I'll try to go into my application and try to do the next steps. So that's the first step. Let me talk through at least, and hopefully this instance is up, or we'll check in the end what's the issue, or if anybody else can check from the team, that would be great. So this is just a step for the login. Once you have logged in, I'll show what all y'all can do and what powerful things it is possible. What you do need is some kind of API key, which can come from any of them, OpenAI, from Gemini, from several other ones, which I'll show as well. Very commonly is OpenAI or Gemini. Here are the steps for getting the Google Gemini API key. I mean, it gives a high level of that, and it generates you a key. You do need to give your credit card. It's a free trial, so it hardly or never gets to the point unless you really start doing too many things. That's what will happen. Or you can have an OpenAI key, but you have to set up a key and do that. So I have already set up all those things. I'm going to even give you guys these steps. They're planning to make a document and give that as well through a document later point of time. But here is the steps for the key in case, okay, so some people are able to access now, which is great. Yeah, that's the challenge of being in a cloud platform. So I already have all of this created. So once you log in, and I think I will request everybody to focus back here. Once you have logged in, please make sure you go back to this. Please focus your attention on the screen. This is a small icon which everybody gets confused, and it takes you to a different screen because what DataStax has, it is multiple products, and it will take you to the Astra database by default, and we don't need to create any database, anything. So please make sure you go to the app selector over here and then you go to LangFlow. You probably by default are in ExtraDB. So when you go to LangFlow, let me click, I'm already here. So it should bring you to this kind of interface. You might not see any of the flows created, but this is what you will see once you come to the LangFlow interface. Let me go to the other ones and then come back. So this might be the default where you come and you might be seeing a database and you can start, which I also have, but you don't need any of the database for today's demo and these pieces. So going back to LangFlow where we need to be. So in the LangFlow interface, what happens, DataStax has really done a pretty nice interface where you can create a new flow, a new agent, and it has some pre-built templates and things which can be already picked up from. And if I pick anyone, I think last time we took one of these, if you pick up any of these, there can be a nice little flow which can be created and it automatically has the necessary components and things like that. I'm just going to browse through some of the templates and we're going to do one of them today. So there are several of those, if depending on what use case patterns which you are interested in, what you feel, you could pick up any of these. There are a lot of interesting ones. If you are into marketing and blogs or SEO, there are social media, market research, there are so many interesting pieces which have been already created, and they come up with almost a good set of starter things which you don't even have to do anything. And there is a good collection of sentiment analysis and several things. What I was thinking is, what could be the use case or pattern which can apply to, in a practical way, to most of the people in the group, especially if you're working in an organization, which will make more sense for an organization. There are two things which come to mind. And of course, you can start with a blank one, but I think two things which come to more in an enterprise or a small company also, a factor is the RAG, the retrieval augmented generation, where it's more of your private data which you're attaching to the model. And it suddenly becomes very niche, very context oriented for your own private chatbot or application or system within your company. And so on and so forth. So that can be really powerful. We may not be able to do a full RAG today, but a similar kind of implementation, what we could do is another template where if you are in an organization, most of the organizations definitely do not want to pass their data on the open source, open, all of these different OpenAI and different platforms. They would want to do something on a private way. So this example, which I'm just going to click on it so that you feel from the very beginning, I'm going to switch over to my other one, which is pre-ready in interest of time. But this is what will happen. Once you select any of those, it will start with a canvas. This is the background canvas, and this is just for documentation. I could just take and delete it as well. But these are different components which can be selected, and there are so many different components which can be coming from the storage, data processing perspective, what controls, conditional, so many different features which typically are needed. It's a whole gamut of collections of things which are possible here, which you can. What this one is already doing, giving you a set of things where you can attach or multiple files from your private interface and have a chat interface and then ask questions to this using a prompt. It automatically is showing up one of these OpenAI keys, which I was talking about. So you do need to create your own key and provide that and attach it. It's automatically picking my OpenAI key, which I've attached and created a variable. You can directly copy paste after you've done the steps. If you are going to use Google or something else, you need to change that to Google or Anthropic, whichever platform it is, and then you're going to attach that key. I'm going to see if I can, I need to attach the file. So let me pick up a file quickly. And I have a file here ready. And I'll show what the file is. First, what I'm doing is I'm running this part of the flow. And when I'm running this part, it automatically runs everything. So it is verified everything. You see this green and few seconds, which means everything is verified. My key is fine. My file is there. Everything is working fine. What after that you can do, you can click on something called as a playground, which will open up the interface and it will be in the test or the application mode where I can run it. But before I do that, let me try to bring up that file, which was there. Yeah, so here is the file. So I have a couple of files. The first one which I've taken, I might stick only with one for interest time. So this is just a simple file. It is just a couple of pages, FAQ from your site or company. So instead of asking general questions or not giving specific things about your company, this one is now going to start giving answers based on your own FAQ or anything, policies, document which you have, your own systems which are allowed, your governance rules in your organization. So there is so many ways you can apply. It doesn't need to be only file. You can attach different things in much bigger flow databases and different things, and you can create your own system like that. So that's the file. As you see, it has few sets of FAQs. I'm going to get started and see. By the default, this is the question: what is this talk about? So it talks about it is already captured the data and says what this file is about. It's a good starting point to always check if you're just checking and testing your application. What is the customer support number? And I'm not even trying to correct my spellings, punctuation. As you know, chatbots don't need that. So it has given this. What I'm moving next to is like email. I'm not even asking a full question now. And it has figured out, this is a very interesting part where you have to understand, it is not answering something like exact question and this answer. These were the few previous world of how chat bots used to be there, in a rule-based. It is really reading through this document, and the email and the phone number is very differently, and it has taken all those pieces and stored into different, in a sophisticated system, it will be more of vectors and embedding in a vector database that will be making more sense. But this is a very, very simple one kind of a thing. Okay, what is the return policy? So any of these things which you can continue asking it, and it is now very much focused on your own set of data. I think this is a very good use case. If you have a specific file and you wanted to just implement that on in your organization, you're thinking there are a series of files and databases which you want to really collaborate and start making kind of a chatbot which is assisting, whether the governance of your organization, if you're talking about an application, your documentation, it can be very much your internal thing. And that I think is a very common use case, which changing the files and data source, you can really apply. So I thought I will bring this up in a very, very simple format without low code. As you see, I hardly wrote a single code. I attached the file. I had to put the API key. I didn't even touch any other components in this case. Of course, it automatically saved this as a second example. You can go and create more of these. Then you create for the true RAG application, which definitely is much more sophisticated. But again, you get a very good starting point over here. And whatever you wanted to give you like in a very short period of time, enable you so that if you can start playing, that's more important. I think in this short period of time, it may not be able to run line by line and work together with each other and troubleshoot, but at least you all have got started and you can see what the possibilities are. And there are ways to really deploy it, and all of that could be out of scope, and maybe we can look at the future instances. So that's for now the shortest path, which I wanted to cover in this part of the demo. So let's move to the slides. If anybody has any questions or comments or something, we can address that briefly here. But otherwise, we are going to shift gear. We have two more important things, a big demo, and then more about how the industry and the world is moving around AI. So I want to cover that. There's a lot of ground still to be covered, but hopefully this was at least getting you started. So I'm checking chat. If anybody has any questions so far, feel free to put in the chat. We'll take at logical points, as I said, or we'll open up for Q&A in the end. So with that, I'm going to pass over back to Aparna to take over for the demo number 2, which is a much more sophisticated demo on your app. Aparna, I think you would want to take a screen share for this part for yourself as well. So let me stop share and over to you.
Thank you. I hope the slides are showing up. Once again, welcome everybody. Very much in line with what Raj has been trying to show with the whole visual part of it. We're trying to now, maybe mimic some aspect of it from a more code-based approach. So first, let's discuss what it is that we're trying to do. This small agent that we are trying to build is going to act as a market research assistant for us. What that means is, first, it should have the capability of taking in, a user query. What is it that I want to research about? Let's say, some top organization right now. Maybe I want to understand the EV sales from Tesla. So you're going to have some query that you're going to give to your agent. Now, based on your query, it will have to go ahead and actually do some real search online and pull in all the necessary information. That is going to be the first tool. Based on whatever information that it has pulled in, we should also equip it with at least a little amount of logic so that it is able to go ahead and do some calculations in terms of, especially if you're trying to do a whole analysis part of it among multiple competitors. What are their calculations, which organization or company is doing better, what are the overall summarized values, let's say for the entire last financial year or something, and based on those values also be able to generate a final report for us. So these are going to be the capabilities we are trying to build into our agent, something that's capable of doing some real-time search, be able to do a lot of calculations and do analysis on top of that, and finally structure all of that together for us in the form of a neat report. To be able to do this, we're using the LangChain framework that we have discussed earlier. This is, again, exactly in line with one of the earlier slides that we saw. What are all the components that we expect? One, you're going to need some LLM, obviously. I am using a ChatGPT model right now because, we do have API keys to both ChatGPT as well as Gemini. Now, supposing, you have a paid version of Claude, for example, from Anthropic, you could instead go ahead and choose to use, whichever other API key that is available to you. Tools. We already discussed the functionality we were expecting. So for some parts of it, there are ready-made tools that are already a part of, some of those LangChain submodules. We could either be pulling in those built-in tools, or a lot of times, especially if you want some very specific work done, you will have to write the logic part of it by yourself when it comes to creating your own tools. We are then going to use the create agent function that is available within the LangChain framework to initialize our agent, which then figures out which of those tools to call and in which order to actually carry out the entire task. We're also building in a little interface so that we can keep it very interactive and dynamic. You put in whatever prompts that you need to, and accordingly it is going to go ahead and do that real-time search for us. Moving on, let's go to the actual demo. All right. So the plan for maybe the next 10-15 minutes is, let me share this. We're going to run through the code really quick, just understand what's happening here, and then go ahead and actually execute it and see the output. All right. So let me put this in. Okay, the interface first. Most of you who have already worked with Python, you would have probably already worked with Google Colab. If you haven't, this is probably one of the best resources to get started with, completely free. So anyone with access to a Gmail account can use Google's cloud resources, their collaboratory, to get started with their machine learning, deep learning, or any of these agentic frameworks, anything that involves Python code. It also does allow you to run code in other languages like R programming language, Julia as well. But a lot of the modules themselves are available in Python, the open source modules especially. So Python is probably a good choice if you're wanting to get started. Even if you have very limited experience with coding, or even if this is your very first time getting started, there is the whole vibe coding thing that is going on right now. Most of the models are just the chat models are extremely powerful. So if you have an idea in mind, you can always go to ChatGPT, Gemini, or Claude. I personally prefer Claude. put in your idea very clearly, write a really long prompt. This is what I expect. I want to build an agent using maybe, LangChain. These are the tools, or this is the functionality that's expected. I have a Gemini key. So you can put in those kind of details into a prompt, and at least, 70 to 80% of the code, you could get that kind of assistance to get started. If so you don't really have to figure out how to write everything from scratch. That's from the code part of it. Now the interface, like I have mentioned, which is completely free, Google Colab, you would first connect it. This other window, I'm already connected. So the minute you click on connect, it already gives you access to some cloud resources, both some working area of memory, where your code, if there is also some data. The example that Raj was showing, he was also connecting it to some document store, some proprietary data that we wanted our agent to look at. So if you do want to give access to other data to your model, you can actually just, upload it onto Colab and store it all here. So all that options also available. Now let's look at the code in a little more detail. I'm going, piece by piece. So, all right. The very first thing that you see here is all the various different Python modules that are going to be needed for us to actually execute this code. The very first time that you do this, whether it is through Colab, if you prefer, maybe you have Anaconda or you have Jupyter already installed, you could do it that way. Or some of you might have your own local Python installation. So whichever mode that you want to actually approach this, you'll have to install all of these main dependencies or the modules that have all those function calls enabled within. So we're going to get the LangChain OpenAI because I'm using a ChatGPT's API key. One of the built-in tools into LangChain, which is the DuckDuckGo search, which is a free alternative to Google search. So you'll have to first get and install all your necessary dependencies, and from these packages or modules, import whatever submodule is of interest to us. This is because we are using the ChatGPT model, and then we wanted to look at the Python functions or tools that we actually write, which will show up in the next slide, and then understand, that these are tools available to the whole LangChain model. That's the purpose for which we're going with this. Like I've mentioned, my agent does need to do some web search, for which purpose I'm using this specific search engine. Again, reason for going with DuckDuckGo is it's completely free. It's kind of built into LangChain. You could have gone with Google search. In fact, you could also maybe choose to use another LLM model at this stage, maybe Perplexity or something else for better market research. But you're going to need API keys to any of those other proprietary models that you use. This is going to be probably the most important function call we'll see later, where we initialize an agent, which then reasons and decides which tool to call. There are multiple messages, that kind of go back and forth when you are executing your agents. Now, the very first input that we give to the agent itself, if it is a message, that I want the user to provide, that is the purpose for which I'm using human message. You have AI message, which is response coming back from the system. You have system messages, which are, system actually sending out a message to the agent. So 3 to 4 different categories of these messages. You don't have to be very explicit in terms of which message, but it just makes it, a little more easier for us to understand as to what is happening. So these are all, the necessary software modules that we are kind of bringing into our environment before we even get started. Moving on, once you do have, all the necessary modules in place, we now, deciding on more specific aspects. This probably is the most important stage, setting up your OpenAI key. Even, the visual code sample that we saw, Raj was mentioning both an OpenAI key. One of our previous demos, we also showcased how to get a Google Gemini API key. For the ChatGPT's OpenAI key, now, for example, I've just moved to another window. This is the paid account of ChatGPT that we have, and anybody who has a paid account also gets this access to, some of those developer level features. So you have this option called as API keys. If you log into the OpenAI website itself through the same account, that you used to create your ChatGPT account. Now, it's very, very easy to just go ahead and create a new secret key. But again, keep it secret. Do not share it with anybody else, because it is through this key that OpenAI is kind of authenticating you and allowing you to, put in the prompts and get the responses tied to your billing cycle as well. So always, kind of keep it private, which is the reason why I've kind of, removed it. But I have another working code where our OpenAI key is actually put in here. So this is going to be if you're going to use a paid model. One of our earlier demos, we did showcase another approach. You could use, maybe Olama tool calls if you're doing it on your local Python installation. One other way of approaching this, especially if you do not have a paid key, Hugging Face allows you to get free accounts. They also give you those Hugging Face tokens. Then there are a lot of these slightly smaller or a little less powerful open source LLM models that are available on the Hugging Face website. So you could do that as well if you do not have access to a paid key. Now, this is the LLM that this particular agent will be using for doing a majority of the reasoning and the actual heavy lifting part of it. This is also a place where a lot more can be done. You can switch between models. I've put in 4O Mini. It's more lightweight, but you could go with one of the more powerful, let's say ChatGPT 5.2, GPT 5.2 model. There are a lot of internal parameters as well. You only get to see one here, which is temperature. So things like temperature, top P, top N, especially when you are trying to access your models in this more, API level, little more customization or tweaking that is possible. Now, a temperature level of 0 means don't, include way too much of creativity in your response. Instead, whatever data you pick up from the internet, just present it, summarize it as it is what indirectly I'm telling my agent to do later on. A higher value of temperature would mean, get a little more creative with your response. So, for example, if this was an agent that I was trying to create for some sort of social media marketing, I want to maybe create some blog content where we do want a little more creativity to come into the output itself, you could go with a slightly higher value of temperature. So anything between 0 and 2 is allowed. So again, whichever model that you're trying to use, what are certain internal parameters of the model, how much token length, for example, of the response that you're expecting back, all of this can be customized at this stage. Moving on, like we said, the whole power for the agent comes from the tools that it has access to. Now, for this particular agent, which is like a market research analysis kind of a thing, one, we do need to bring in fresh data, for which we need a search tool. This part of it, we are kind of keeping it simple. We are using a built-in search tool, which is DuckDuckGo search, that's already available with LangChain, and like I've mentioned, completely free. You could have chosen to go with Google search instead over here. But again, the same issue kind of crops up that we saw earlier. Any of the other search tools, you will have to have an account. You'll have to have an API key. Some of them are free to a certain extent. Majority of them do expect, some sort of paid API keys for you to actually create before you're able to use them. So this is probably the easiest low cost version of it. So this is my first tool, and this is something you're going to notice very, very frequently, this @tool decorator. So you essentially writing simple Python logic. And once LangChain looks at this tool decorator, it understands, okay, this is a tool that is now available for me. This is the kind of input argument I put in, and this is the output that the tool is actually going to generate. So the very first tool, which is a web search tool, is going to go and pull in information from the internet based on whatever prompt or query that we put in. The second tool here is a market share calculator. Now, based on the web search and whatever results come in, that entire text that the first tool is going to bring back to us, we're just trying to clean it up, break it up, look at the numbers itself, do a little calculation here, and then building in a little bit of logic. Now, this part of it is very use case based. What is it that you're trying to build? I could have said, dominant market position is only if it has about 60% of market share. So this part of the logic is something that we build based on whatever functionality that we want our agent to actually exhibit. So this second tool that I have is just doing some calculations, and based on the calculations, deciding whether it's a dominant one or like an upcoming one. We have another one more tool here, which is the growth rate calculator. Now, this once again is depending on the output that comes out from the previous tool. If it is very healthy in terms of more than 20% market growth over the entire year, or is it moderate or declining? Whatever analysis it has carried out as part of the previous two tools, we also want it to summarize that and then create a report for us, put in current information. So at this specific date and time, these are the entire findings, and then print it out as a report for us. Now, what you'll notice here is, the first tool is kind of off the shelf kind of a thing, already available within the core tools component of LangChain. Everywhere else, the other three tools is where we are building the logic. Now, if you want, let us say, a whole SEO virtual agent for yourself, you want it to write blogs, do a Quora post, and do a LinkedIn blog post, you can build all these multiple tools. This is where a lot of the logic and the programming part of it is going to go in, where you're going to customize what exactly your agent is capable of. Moving on, this is where we put things together, and the actual functionality really begins. So this was the entire set of tools that we are showing our agent. 4 of those tools that we saw on the earlier slide. We have a web search, a market share calculator, a growth calculator, and finally a report generator. This becomes really important, whether it is this agentic mode, or whether it is you directly going and calling any of your LLM models. The kind of prompt that you put in, what role do you want it to play, what context do you want to give it. So this entire thing in red here is the system prompt we are putting in. We want it to act like a market research assistant. So this is the prompt that goes into the LLM model along with the actual user query. Considering both of these, the React agent that is going to get initialized at the next stage is going to decide at what stage which tool needs to be called and what needs to be done going down the line. So we are asking it to act like a market research assistant and analyze all this company information, and based on that search, then do all those calculations for us, and ultimately generate a nice comprehensive report towards the very end. I'd say this is probably the most important piece of code in the entire demo itself. We are initializing or creating our agent. We've already informed what LLM model in one of the earlier slides, the ChatGPT 4.0. We have given it access to those 4 tools that we have created. This is the system prompt we have initialized that we are sending in. Now, at this stage, in this agent, you don't get to see it, but there's a lot more components that could come in, especially if you want to build some persistent memory. You would also include a memory component here. Then there are other styles as well. We are using the React pattern, but then sometimes you could go with 1 shot, 0 shot, any of those other prompting styles. So the mode in which you want your agent to work. So basically what I'm trying to say is, other than these 3 most important basic arguments that we notice here, there could be some additional components, especially like memory. What kind of agent pattern are we interested in? That might also show up at this stage. But what we're doing now is a basic LLM with access to multiple tools, starting off with the system prompt, and in certain cases, also a human message. Moving on, we'll try to maybe wind up in a couple of minutes with the demo part of it, so we have time for the question answers. All right, so this is just a little extra code in terms of formatting the output part of it. We're also asking it to show us what are tools available. So a little bit of reasoning also we wanted to print out. One other thing, this place, in fact, A very good component to also include at this stage would be like a human in the loop, some middleware where you don't want the agent to carry out everything by itself, but also come back to you in between, to for like a cross check or whether it is proceeding in the right way or not. So you could also include those additional components here. These are some queries that are kind of hard coded. We're going to run it with one of these queries, and then we're also going to put in a fresh query. So in both of those modes, either these hard coded existing queries or with some fresh query that I'm going to put in right now, it's going to take in based on that query, it's going to invoke the necessary tools and then generate the response for us. This part of the code is just to work in that interactive mode, so that instead of considering those hard coded queries, I can give it some fresh input right now. This last slide that you see here, just commented this out. Like I was mentioning, the one final aspect that's actually missing from this overall demo that I didn't include is the memory aspect. But if you did want to do that, you would all this is like some additional code that you would include. First, you would initialize some buffer memory, and then also pass that in when you are creating or initializing your agent. So this is like a quick walkthrough of the entire code that goes into the demo itself. I have that exact same code here in another collab notebook. Only difference being, I have included my OpenAI key here. So let me just go ahead and run this now. And you'll also notice, I'm already connected. You just need to click on connect and it gives you access to these Google Cloud resources. So hitting on the play button should start executing this code, the dependencies, setting up the LLM model, the tools, and then actually initializing the agent here. So I've just combined all of those slides together into one single code cell here. We are working with the first query over here. And you notice all this output in black. It's kind of working in the background. Market research assistant, it's already printed out the tools that it has access to. It is running the example query, the very first query, which was Tesla's market position for 2025. So this is all the output coming from those multiple tool calls and the final report that the agent has generated. Now I'm going to just execute this next cell, which is the interactive mode. So now, it's waiting for us. It's asking me to put in a query so that it can go do the exact same job once again. So this time, let me say iPhone versus Samsung sales for 2025. So this is the data I wanted to go to the internet, pick up, do all those calculations and give me a comprehensive report on. So it's taking a little time. So it's basically, ChatGPT model that is using the DuckDuckGo search, get the data, do all those calculations, format the report. It's taking a little time to finish that up. It's running this particular cell. So, you see it happening here, the actual running of the code. So let's maybe, a few seconds for it to pull in the data, then do the analysis, then create the report. And we should be able to see the output here, maybe a minute or so. Okay. So this was the output that, this particular query has competitive analysis report, iPhone versus Samsung, the query we put in just now. They both continue to dominate. This was the revenue for iPhone. Market share is 18. Samsung has only, 11%. Then overall growth rate, and Apple has overtaken. So this is like, a nice analysis of company A versus company B for the entire last year. You could continue. Otherwise, at this stage, I could just put in an exit and that would stop executing of this cell. So basically, again, the initial dependencies part of it, this might take a little time when you're getting started the very first time that you run. Depending on what all APIs that you have access to, you can include those specific tool calls. This is the actual tools themselves. The logic behind the tools is where we'll need to put effort into what exactly we expect our agent to do. I'm going to stop with that now. Please do check out the official documentation of LangChain. There are a lot of sample code snippets available and the whole logic behind how you would go and get started, what are all the various modes. So this is really good reading if you want to actually do, more powerful work with LangChain. I'm going to stop, hand it back to Raj. Any of the questions or, the final aspects of it we can handle. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Aparna. That was really wonderful, quite detailed demo. And yes, folks, I think we'll be sharing the code. Of course, the API key, that's what Aparna might have changed on the last minute. So I think I don't know the latest code, but we'll share all the code and y'all can refer back. Let's move to the last part of the conversation, which I definitely wanted to cover. And as I said, there is a lot of change which is happening in the industry. I'm sure everybody is overwhelmed. The pace, the hype around the things are saying so much, and how can we keep up, try to keep up? It's so fast-paced. So let's get going with that last part of the conversation. I know we are a little over, so we may need a little more for time, but I believe a lot of you folks can get some good value from this. Perfect. Okay. So to touch this part out of that, I think the best way to do is look at something called as the Gartner's hype cycle, which Gartner is a research organization, research and advisory organization, very famous and popular in the business world. They do a lot of research in different kind of applications. And they generate this something called as the hype curve, which is a very interesting curve. If you have not looked at it before, I want to just take a moment to explain typically what the curve means and what it does. So it has expectations on the y-axis, and the x-axis, it has the time period. What typically happens, a technology trigger, what it means, ChatGPT showing up, iPhone being created, a new EV car industry coming. So any kind of huge technology trigger will start this in motion. And once it starts in motion and it is a big change, disruption, revolution, it leads to a point where it is called the peak of inflated expectation, or also the peak of the hype. And a lot of the things which are related to AI are right now sitting here, and I will show some of the actual graph which Gartner has created. Every year they created, and it's very, very powerful, especially if you are in the corporate world. And in general also, it is a thing. I'll try to give you some nuggets how to utilize it for an individual, for a company, and various aspects of it, and sum it up how you can look at your career, how you can combine this with certain other parts which we have, a framework to really help you keep up with the change. I think it's just too much. But typically what happens after all the hype, not only in technology world, it's an interesting curve. It actually happens to every human emotion as well, whether it is every relation, every new gift, everything which you buy, we all go through the same cycle. There is a lot of expectation, excitement, buzz, but after some period of time that starts falling down, there's a challenge. So that continues to come down, and there is okay, this technology, this tool, this thing, this connection is not giving me all the things which I need or what the expectation was doing, especially when there is a very heightened level of expectation. But slowly, steadily, what happens, you come to a point where you realize there's a lot of positive value, and that is called the slope of enlightenment. And finally, this things maturity and mature, and that becomes the plateau of productivity. And you hope a lot of these things, I think, most of the technology, the internet of the world, the mobile technology, everything has passed through this cycle. We have seen this over and over again, but it is somewhat different this time. And I'll point out that as well. So this is an important thing which you have to keep in mind how it will think. I'm just going to take a personal example quickly so that a lot of the folks can connect. Let's say you're trying to get the latest and greatest iPhone. It is going to be shipped to your home, and you're going to be really excited, or you're going to the shop in the Apple store and trying to get it. There is a lot of hype and buzz and kind of excitement, hope, which is generated over here. By the time you come home and you start using it for a few days, you realize it just has another camera on the back and it doesn't do much different photos or whatever, that kind of thing. The expectations come down, but eventually you realize that the battery size is good, that it stays much longer than what you had hoped for, and it's much better than the previous version. You start getting used to it, and then you realize this is my settled point, or where I can continue to use it in a more productive and useful, and that's where you make peace with it, right? So that's the way journey which happens to individual cycle, technology, and everything. So the latest, greatest one, which Gartner, it's a busy one. I'm going to point out a few things. It's quite a lot of information. So they generate for various sectors, for AI, for data analytics, all of these different technologies. The most interesting one to me, I think, is this, or the first one many people would like to start one is the hype cycle for emerging technology, how the overall landscape is changing. This came in September 2025, so a few months back. And I'm going to point out a few. There is a lot of things going on here. There is the expectation, as I said, there is the timeline over here. What you also need to understand is the legend. These different parts which is saying this particular technology or this particular point would peak or reach the plateau in 2 to 5 years, light blue versus dark blue 5 to 10 years. So those things should be helpful. The triangle is over here, orange. Triangle is talking about technology which might take 10 plus years. And let's try to touch a few. I think there are so many things. I think if you can search this term, you'll find a lot of things around it, and you can go deeper, several of the things which may not be relevant for today's conversation. But I want to point out a few ones, right? I think the humanoid working robots, right? Today, there was a declaration like the Fremont Tesla factory, which is they're going to stop making Tesla S and X model and start going to focus primarily or largely on Optimus Tesla. And as our dear friend Elon Musk says, like it's always going to come next year. Next year never comes, right? It keeps moving forward and forward. But what Gartner and the research says it takes 10 years. Let's see what happens. I think there could be some early versions of things which can come in, but there's usually a difference, a gap, which was there pointed out here. So that's one example which is very common. If you look at the other one, which is artificial general intelligence, AGI, that also has been continuing. And the interesting thought could be from year to year, looking back where it was. I think AGI has been sitting here a very long period of time, for several years now, because it's a very massive investment and project and research, which continues to happen and baffles everything. So holy grail, people hope a lot on that, but it's still not reached there. So all these things are the innovation trigger, but when you come here, which is the peak of inflated expectations, those are things which you are hearing like crazy. In the AI perspective, you are thinking agents everywhere right now. It used to be prompt engineering, it used to be generative AI, not so much now. It is more shifted towards AI agents, and that's why you are hearing this. So this should give you understanding what is happening and how the industry is evolving. And I'll connect these pieces and try to see how potentially you can think it from your career perspective. So this is focused on the general hype cycle on emerging technologies. AI has some pieces, but you see other things as well. They're talking a lot about something called as machine customers, machines buying on behalf or purchasing kind of a thing. It's far, far away. Also, 5 to 10 years, there is a lot of talk about decision intelligence. And you can read the commentary. If you search that, there will be reprints which you can find. But those are a few points I want to touch. Let's look at the AI one, the AI specific hype curve. So if you look here, obviously AI agents still continues to be in the top of this inflation and the hype which it is right now. It's not a bad thing, right? What it means, we have to also understand it from the professional perspective that this is a lot of investment which has happened, a lot of expectation also happening. Wherever there is a large expectation, this results to the next stage. It's not a bad thing over the year. It is a natural cycle, which I gave few examples, and it happens to almost every single thing. So there's nothing wrong or bad about it. So AI agents are sitting here. If you see governance has showed up again. It was very strange, though. I think the last year governance was not there in the chart, and this now come back, which definitely makes sense. There is a generative AI, if you see, and prompt engineering and all of that under the bundle of that. It's actually coming down, and as you don't hear much of that. So it's very nice, rightfully represented in this curve. So it's very insightful if you are looking for how should I drive my next 5 years or 10 years of career and what I should do. And so on and so forth. What is coming out of this thing is the cloud AI services, the Gemini, the Amazons of the world and the Googles of the world. Those applications are getting stabilized or at least offering a decent level of, they're changing, evolving rapidly for sure, no doubt about it, but they are kind of stabilized and slowly reaching the plateau, which hopefully will reach in a short period of time. So this curve is very interesting. Now, how do you take it back? Like, this is a lot of information. Now, how do you take this back and reflect upon yourself, right? lot of reactions people come in. The world is divided into two parts: people who are optimistic very highly, and there is a spectrum on the other side who are very pessimistic about AI, right? And it's both sides of the spectrum. I personally believe a lot of optimism and hope that a lot of positive things are happening. I personally believe that just wait and watch or don't do anything is not a right option. It's not a good option. It's only going to create a gap. And it's a very, I keep calling it the exciting world and scary world at the same time, because of the amount of investment, the energy, the change which is happening. We are involved in so much research and kind of conversation with CIOs and different kind of things that we see, the layoffs, and all of those things are connected or not connected. There is a lot of research. 71% of the layoffs are not connected to those things. Even 29 is not truly connected. So there is a lot of things which are happening in the industry. So my take here is this: you need to step back because you are yourself at a different point of time. Nobody can understand where you are totally, and understand where you are and how you can optimize it from your perspective. For example, if you are a professional who is connected to somewhat in the governance area, in architecture or something, you're working in a corporate world already, this could be area which you look at. If there is something you are in the area of finance, that could be FinOps, which you can look into those areas. AI agents is definitely if you're tech, but even then, are you a technology person, a non-technology person, the low-code approach, the no-code approach, which we showed you different options, right? So that's something which you need to look at. If you come from DevOps or operations, model ops is interesting kind of a thing. So there are a lot of opportunities and a lot of things to be created and seen through it. Cloud is definitely a stable option for a career and kind of continue to part getting certifications and things like that. So you need to look at this from your own lens and build your career, your path forward accordingly, right? And this is very important to understand, not only this where it is sitting, but what this legend is trying to tell you and where, and it changes. I think there is, every year they come up with all those things. So looking at all of this is very humbling and as well as very important. Now, still it is overwhelming, no doubt about this. We have seen this curve. I'll share you one example in 10 plus, 15 plus years back, how I have seen this play out and what has happened and how this is different and what you could do. So for example, the same flow, internet has passed, mobile revolution has passed, big data, which was one of the very prior one and mandatory and required one, we are reached to AI because of big data and data, obviously, that passed through the same cycle. There are a few things which happen, right? The initial chaos, the innovation chaos, which I call, is very disruptive. There are so many technologies, so many things which come into play. The many companies which were almost the founding companies of big data, cloud era, Hortonworks, and all do not exist anymore. They are in a very different form they are existing today. It has changed. So that happens. Half of those technology and companies do not survive because of competition, because of consolidation, and several of these things which happen. Most of these things have started to happen on cloud at this point of time, whether it is Amazon or Azure, Microsoft, or those things. So that changes and evolves. So it is something which has happened before. We have to calm ourselves that is, first of all, not a new cycle. It keeps on happening and has happened for several times before as well. The difference is this: no doubt, the amount of investment, the amount of hype, the amount of scale is unprecedented. It has never seen kind of before. Companies are easily talking about billions and billions of dollars of investment in these kind of a thing. And obviously the pace of change which happens, the pace of fall, everything is associated with that. The more investment, the more hype, the bigger the fall. It's all part of it. So here is another way of looking at it, how you can keep up with this. Gone are the days when you can learn one skill. I am a developer, or I am just a designer on one technology, or I know one piece of this thing. It is no more the case. I mean, it is very, very important that you have the deep expertise in certain things. That is important. The analogy which I typically try to give, think about it like your dining table. If you have at your home, you have to have a lot of breadth of a lot of topics these days, because so many things are happening. You need to be aware of different things which are happening at a high level, but the four legs of your dining table should be things which are you are a little deeper in few different things. It may be not four, it could be two, it could be three for you, but you need to have deep expertise which are going to keep you get the job done or get you that get your the offer letter. The overall conversation, the breadth is going to get you the interview. That's it. the next step, or you're going to keep the job when you have the depth. So it's a combination of things if you can visualize that and think it from that perspective. The other way we used to say that T, the letter T, you have a lot of breadth, and then you have a depth on few of these technologies which will really go one technology or something, but it's changed. I would like to take a dining table analogy and say like there are multiple things which you need to have depth. But how do you keep up with all this, right? How do we still keep up with this? So what I would suggest that I had written down an article a few years back, and it is more relevant now. I'll share the link of this as well, and how this can be different. So here is a paradigm. There is a saying that you need 10,000 hours to really be the master, the goat of anything, right? I think for that level, you have to reach. Probably we don't have enough life left to have 10,000 in so many different things. It could be one thing, if you at all can be. That's why there are only a few words. But what I think, taking that analogy and building up a paradigm for learning, which I call it as 1, 10, and 100 hours paradigm, which you can shift and think that what is happening, there's so much technology, so much talk, so much new things coming in. And if you hear in your job or some things like that, if you think this is something meaningful, spend an hour, first hour, just to get a high-level intro, a fundamental knowledge about something. It could be watch a micro-learning session, a YouTube kind of documentation, high level of this. Don't go deeper with it. Just so that you have the lingo, you are able to talk about these things for some things, not everything. You have to be selective about even that. That's your first step. But once you have done that and your team is deciding to do kind of a proof of concept, you're trying to do things, all of these things you can go for, then maybe spend something around 8 hours, 10 hours, a day of time, and spend like 4 hours in a couple of days, whatever that format may be, that you can start getting some hello world, your working knowledge, that you are now able to get something deeper, what we were trying to do, and give you a starter kind of application which you can get started. That's where you reach this point. But if you really want to understand that technology, that tool, that process, whatever that is there, its need starts getting into something that you need to invest your time and really go deeper. If that is going to be your bread and butter in your career, you need to spend at least 100 hours to really understand, learn, practice, and do that. So this is a simple analogy. It doesn't have to be 1, 10, and 100, obviously. You get the point. But that's how we need to filter so that we're continuously getting exposed and being aware of things. This small 1 hour, half an hour during lunch, quick kind of things could be helpful instead of mindless scrolling. Like we spend a lot of time. It's never the problem about time. It's about how we are applying that priority. So this is a simple framework. I'll share this link and several other links as well. So I'm going to shift the conversation a bit. So these are a few things which you have to keep in mind. Now, what we do and what we could help you all, we are a professional training services company. Since 2008, we serve Fortune 500 companies. Be blessed to really serve one of the best in pretty much every sector, which is the leader in every sector. We do a lot of corporate trainings. What we are trying to do shift is like based on the changes which is happening and talk about provide that to individuals as well. Some of our trainings which we do for corporate, we also share outside. We are opening up a new program called Gen AI Mastery. What it does, it tries to do all of these different things and mainly provide something which you can base your value and career from there. It's a 4-week program which covers the multi-model. I didn't touch that part. I think how it is picking on the hype curve as well. It may be suitable for some folks. It may not necessarily be suitable for everyone. This is a low code, almost no code kind of program. So if you're looking for deeper codes, that's different links which we have. But this is something which we are starting soon. It's a hybrid program which has several sessions, pre-recorded, so many of the things live, which we are going to do. We are going to do capstone. It's definitely taking you to that, if that is appropriate for you. As a bonus, also, we have a repository of 100 plus e-learning programs on our platform, which we share to our corporate clients. And that's one thing which we are going to share for this people who sign up as well. There are several tutorials. This is just a subset of that. I just picked up the screenshots of the AI-related stuff. So that's what this is. We are going to open up a Q&A and bring it up. For today's attendee, there are a couple of things which we want to thank you for being present so long and till the end, a little overtime. Is first of all, there is this discount for whoever has joined right now. For our course, it's a $599 course, but if you use this promo code, you will get it for $599, so $100 discount. This QR code will directly take you to that link. I'm going to paste that link Also, I'm going to share a lot of other resources as well. And there's an additional gift which we want to share. Let me see if I can pull all of this and put in the chat. So appreciate you all hanging in there. I know that we ran a little over with some of the hiccups and other things, but I think these are things which I have shared the link of this, the code, the YouTube channel. I've also shared the article link which I was talking about. Some of the folks were asking the YouTube channel. And finally, a program, all of the e-learning courses, I've put a promo code. So if you sign up and join that, there's a free promo code. You will get a tutorial course, hands-on course, which you can take in. So that's in the chat only for people who have joined. So we have our stayed till the end. So really, thank you for staying till the very, very end. So appreciate that. With that, we'll open for question answer. So if you have any questions, please let us know. I'm going to go through the chat and see if any questions, but hopefully this was helpful. And at least some nuggets you value, which we could provide by the no-code demo or the very intense deep demo of Aparna on the code side, and maybe the nuggets which we wanted to share from the career perspective. I hope somewhere something connected and you could utilize and have that in your career. And if even one person gets benefited, we'd be super, super happy. Okay, so any questions, Aparna, or anything you're seeing in the chat which we missed?
Most of the questions in the chat have been answered. Any of the subject.
Perfect. Okay. Yeah, I see a lot of links and a lot of things which have been shared. Perfect. Cool. Any other questions? We can open it up if anybody has questions. But otherwise, I wanted to thank everybody for being part of this session and staying in so late.